Hello everyone, Kurtupo here with part, I don't know, what part is it, 13 of a series on why I think the Raichu should be banned from the expanded format of the Pokémon Trading Card Game, maybe, I don't know. But it doesn't really matter because this is actually going to be the final episode in the series. This is going to sound kind of weird, but this actually isn't the first final episode. I've made, I believe this is like the fourth final episode, and I don't really have really a plan. I know usually I have like, some sort of plan in the form of the PowerPoint outline whole setup, but I don't this time. So this is going to be kind of just a rambling on my part. I do have like two very specific points I want to talk about, but between those two and getting to them, this is mostly going to be just sort of a rambling video. I guess more so than the others, given my my track record. Hopefully, I'm going to try my best, so hopefully this video is not too long. This is this giant fan. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Hopefully you cannot, because it's very obnoxious. It's going to be a little bit awkward to re-record. But anyway, those 2 points that I mentioned earlier, I want to talk about why I'm ending this series, and I also want to talk about the future of the series, because, spoiler alert, I plan to reboot the series. But yeah, let's kind of dive in to why I'm ending this series. And again, I'm going to try my best to keep it down, but if you have any questions that you'd like to, me to explain in depth, you can just ask me in the comments, ask me in my stream. I don't want to make it sound like I'm keeping the cards close to my chest. If you ask me, I'll answer. Plain and simple and honest. But I really do want to make sure I don't take too long. But yeah, why am I ending the series? For two simple reasons. Well, not really that simple, but for 2 reasons nonetheless. I'm not very happy with the quality of the past few episodes. Well, all the episodes really. And actually, if anything, I'm happier with the past few episodes. But I'm also not very happy with the content in them. When I first started the Raichu series, my argument for why it should be banned was pretty, fairly concise, right? I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to talk about, different, points, dynamics, etc., and every week I would introduce a new deck that exemplifies that point. So, for example, the Oranguru deck, which was one of the first decks I was supposed to kind of showcase, was meant to just show a bare bones Raichu loop, and that's why, in my opinion, Oranguru is like the worst of them. Well, pre-Senchino, of course, was the worst because it's very clunky, but it's very good at showing how Raichu decks work at all, and that's why it was the first deck that was planned. And believe it or not, I used to make Reddit posts every week back when I was able to make them every week, kind of introducing the deck, and that was received fairly negatively, which makes sense, right? Nothing quite screams Reddit like some random person trying to tell you their card should be banned, and then the comment section is just telling the other person in a very nice manner how they're wrong. You know how it is. And if you don't worry about it. But the argument was fairly concise. I thought I had a pretty good idea about how I was going to go about it. And that kind of shows in the first few videos, and the fact that I made Reddit posts at all, right? But the reality is that I didn't really have as much time to make the videos. I told myself I would make them once a week. I was pretty good with that for a while, but it slowly started to take me forever to make them. And I'm not a full-time content creator or anything. I have things to do. I was just making them in what little free time I had. I did not plan my life around having a little bit of time to work on stuff like that. Now I do. I have a little bit of time where I say, okay, I have this little bit of time where I can work on a video or I can stream for a little bit, right? But back then I did not have that. And I kind of took so long that the expanded format changed a lot. I don't want to talk too much about it here, but in the last few sets, well, not the last several sets, the expanded format has changed a lot more with each new set than before. You know, in every single set, there's like a couple of cards that are really good. The example, are really good and change up the format a little bit. It's usually only a little bit. A good example would be Zoroark or Ninja, right? We now know Turbo Dark. Now, not everyone is on the Turbo Dark hype train, but Turbo Dark is really good, right? Zoroark or Ninja is really good. It's really hard, really fast. But the reality is that most of that deck, those decks, I should say, the cards that make that deck work have been with us the entire time, right? The Energy Acceleration, the Darkrai, those were the Shamans, right? Those were all there before. It was really just Zoroark or Ninja by itself that made this deck really good because it hit hard and it hit fast, but the backbone has always been there. It's been there since, I don't know, Dark Explorers, I don't know. The point is that, Zoroark or Ninja, while it is the face of a new deck archetype, so to say, by itself, it's really just one card that enables a previously good deck to become even better and arguably one of the best decks. But in most recent expansions, we've seen tons of cards which really shake up the metagame. And I just mean making an old good deck great again, like, say, for example, Snorlax V and VMAX, which is basically a Mega Ray, except now we're getting Eternatus, which is like Dark-type Mega Ray. Anyway, I'm spending too much time on this. Basically, my old videos are obsolete, not just in the context of the expanded format as a whole, but also in the context of Raichu decks. Lantern by itself basically made every single Sableye deck obsolete and made my whole explanation on Trick Shovel theory obsolete. Not that I did a great job of explaining Trick Shovel. Every time I look back on that video, I'm like, wow, I did a terrible job explaining that. But now it doesn't matter, because with Lantern, you can quote-unquote recover Trick Shovels, and so you don't need to know, like, when is the best time to discard your opponent's cards. You don't need to. And similarly, Cinccino by itself made pretty much every single Oranguru build obsolete. And now that I've learned how good Porygon Z is, that's another thing, right? In the very beginning, I said Porygon Z is terrible, don't ever bother using it. And now it's become my favorite deck, and it shows a lot of promise in the future of the expanded format. And that basically made every single deck that used the Milotic engine obsolete as well. And so half of my series is basically dead in the water. And then the other half, well, all of them are not very good, but also the other half I feel is unnecessary. And this brings me, I mentioned this isn't the first time I've made the final episode, and the other videos I did were set reviews. I only did the set review for Sword and Shield. That was something I've been thinking of doing for a while, but I did a video on me looking back at Sword and Shield review, and me doing a set review, and likewise looking back on the set for Rebel Clash. Actually, Sword and Shield was the last episode that went public. That's pretty bad. But basically, I kind of realized that I tried to do the style, not the style, when talking about the set reviews, I tried to make them so that I only talk about cards which really affect Raichu decks. And I try to make it seem like in each new set there was a ton of tools, right? And to be fair, with Sword and Shield specifically, I think there's a little bit merit to, you know, calling out everything and saying that might be helpful, because we had just been hit with this new turn 1 supporter rule, and there had to be a lot of testing done. When I look back at when I did the video where I looked back at that set review, set analysis, set preview, I think I later changed the title to preview. It doesn't matter though, I never released any of them. I kind of realized that basically did not use any of those cards. And you know, that's fine, right? That's fine. But also, the Sword and Shield one specifically ended up being just me redoing that Sword and Shield review and just adding, yeah, it's bad at the end of every single card. I wasn't really too happy with that. I like the idea of looking back on older videos and talking about our predictions and seeing whether they were right or wrong, but it just was not a great video to watch. You're basically just watching the previous video, which is not great. I'm glad I did not publish that. But I also did the Rebel Clash set review. I might just release that anyway at some point in the future, just say, hey, you know, this video is not really great, I scrapped it for a reason, but there's some really good insight. Because I did something interesting for the Rebel Clash set review, which is I went to Poke Beach like a week or two after the whole English set had been revealed, and I kind of like, it was kind of blind. I say kind of blind because I looked at a couple of cards beforehand, but also, you know, when there's a big new card that everyone's talking about, basically what I'm saying is I don't actively look at new card reveals, but I also don't actively avoid them, right? When there's a big new energy card, I mentioned Eternatus VMAX, right? And also there's a new Crobat. I know of those cards not because every day I'm, you know, refreshing Poke Beach to find out what the new card reveal is. It's because everyone's talking about it and I'm picking it up, right? And I did something really interesting, with the Rebel Clash, which is I went on Poke Beach and I went through every single card and I talked about whether or not it should be it would be worth considering in testing. And then that was the first half of that video, and then the second half was me going over the cards after the fact and saying, yep, these cards are good, good job, passed me in the moment, right, in a split second, for identifying its effect, or identifying its really cool tool. And then I just cut away all the cards that at the end of the day felt weren't really a huge problem. Things like the Inteleon VMAX, I remember I was like, oh man, it does 60 damage to the bench, that's huge. And I was looking back and I was like, well, not really, right? At least not more than, say, more Pico VMAX, right? Those decks. And, you know, I was like, okay, I'll cut out all the cards. But what ended up happening at the end is that I pretty much cut everything. I only had like 4 cards that were worth talking about in that video, and I really only believed in like 2 of them. Especially now that I've had a lot more time to. Well, obviously we've all had a lot more time. Darkness Ablaze is right around the corner. And cards like Nugget just really aren't that great, even with the Oranguru, right? They're just not worth it in the expanded format. I haven't been running it. Most people have not been running it. I think we can all agree it's not quite the tool that I hoped it might be. And I basically realized this was going to be the case no matter how I did the set review. The reality is that I wanted to make a set review in the context of Raichu decks, but what it ended up really being is me talking about new cool cards in the set in the context of the entire expanded format, minus heavy hitting, you know, new Pokemon or tools that allow you to go Urzumi hit stronger. And that's not really what Raichu is about. And I was like, you know what, this really is not that great, right? I knew ahead of time that if I released it in a couple of, you know, weeks, it would be obsolete because 75-80% of the cards don't really matter that much. Ow, excuse me. And so that's why I scrapped them, right? And I've come to the conclusion that unless there's a really cool set, I don't think I'll be doing set reuse in the future. I think in the future I'll be taking the PTCG radio route and just making individual videos on individual cards and speculating on them, hopefully optimistically. I guess that really is the PTCG radio route. That is the PTCG radio. I know everyone gives him flack, but I enjoy his content, right? It's always nice to look at cards optimistically. That was one reason, right? And the other reason, that one reason being the content is not that great. Also, the quality is not that great. I already forgot what things I've talked about, so excuse me if I'm repeating this. But I made this series initially in the mindset of haste, that I had to get them out as quickly as possible. And I really don't think that's how or me specifically, but I guess to anyone else who is thinking of making videos or makes videos, even in present tense. Your mindset should not be to try and make a video as fast as possible that works. I think it's a lot better if you spend some time and work on it a little bit and you make a video that you're proud of. Because it takes me like a month to make these videos anyway, in this case multiple months. It's probably better, and they're not that great anyway, it's probably better if I take a month and a half and make something that actually looks good, you can watch it comfortably, it's pleasant to look at, and the content is good. Instead of something that, is basically garbage, right? I think that has to do with kind of my stubbornness to keep the consistency and style of the series. When I first started the series, I basically did not really know how to make a video. I had been streaming for a little bit, but anyone who's streamed and made videos can tell you that even though, you use OBS for both and, you're recording gameplay and you're talking about your thoughts, they're very different. And part of that comes down to, the editing. Because I basically did zero editing. I set up, the style in a way where I did not have to edit very often. That PowerPoint style. I guess I really am trying to be PTCG radio. Oh gosh, I forgot where I was going with that. I was probably just going to talk about PTCG radio more. But I made the videos in the style where I didn't have to do a whole lot of work. And most of that had to do with the fact that I did not know how to edit a video, because when I'm making, content online in video format, it's usually for streaming, not for actual videos. And even in those videos where I do have to do some video editing, it's usually for games where you really don't have to do stuff. I'm thinking specifically Let's Plays and things like Pokemon, where all you have to do is a layout and your team, and then the game shows itself, right? And that's not necessarily the case when you're going to talk about something abstract like, abstractions, right? It's not gameplay, right? Me talking about new cards in the set is not gameplay. That does not naturally lend itself to a style where you can just get away with not video editing. And I didn't know how to video edit. And since then, I have learned. I won't proclaim myself to be a master at video editing, but I do know how to do some very basic stuff that I simply did not know how to do in the beginning of the series. But I still have this notion that I had to keep the same style for consistency's sakes. So even though I know how to video edit, I have not been doing any video editing at all, and I think it really shows. The videos are clearly taken in as few takes as possible, especially the earlier ones. You can tell that I basically just hit record, and at the end of that recording, I just looked over it and I was like, yeah, I guess that's good enough, and I just put it in, export the video, and post it online. The later ones, you can tell I had a little bit more practice, but only a little bit more. And hopefully, or not hopefully, but what I want to do, I'm kind of trying to segue to the point which is the future of the series. I want to reboot the series, right? Because it doesn't feel right to tell people at the beginning of every video to check out, the playlist in the description down below, to catch up on the series when half the series, well, when all the series is garbage and half the series is straight up obsolete. That's not really fair to you, the viewer. So I want to reboot the series, and I want to do it in a way where I future-proof a little bit more, but also aren't afraid to change how I'm making the videos and to do them well. And I don't want to talk too much because I don't want to make promises that I cannot fulfill. But one of the things about the old series is that I was trying my best to kind of adhere to this plan that I set out at the very beginning of the series when I had this, what I thought was a concise argument. And it kind of just became me talking about, it's less of an argument, cohesive argument, excuse me, I cannot speak. It became less of a cohesive argument where each video is its own point, and more of just me, the Raichu player, going through Expanded and trying to adapt to the changes in the Expanded format. And that does not really mix well, right? I said it before and I'll say it again, in the very first videos you can kind of tell I was going somewhere. With these last couple videos, it feels like I'm just talking about the Expanded format under the context of Raichu. And I think that's a good way to go. Again, I don't want to make promises I can't keep, but I think the new series will be a good mix. What I'm hoping is that it's a good mix of the fundamentals of Raichu decks, how they work, how to make them, how to play them. Because that's another thing. I haven't really taught anyone how to play the decks. I've just kind of been talking about them. It'd be nice to make like a full guide. Maybe a couple decks, say, hey, play this deck until you get the hang of things, then move on to this deck, and then you can start tinkering with your own. But I kind of want it to be half, fundamental stuff like that, and the other half just my journey as a Raichu player, adapting to the Expanded format. It's very interesting, in certain games, I'm thinking like specifically Pokemon VGC, you can like have an entire season where you take one team, right, and you just play that team the entire season, and you just make changes to that team. And some people do the same thing in Standard, and some people do the same thing in Expanded until it inevitably rotates out. But the fact that Raichu is really powerful, and in my opinion is good no matter the state of the Expanded format, I think would be a really good opportunity to kind of do something that no one's really ever done before. People have made series where they take one deck and they try and do as many things as possible with it, though those tend to not last too long. And I think Raichu is something different. I think I can take a format where I am just adapting to the entire Expanded format. I think I can make that into something that is informative and is productive towards explaining why the deck should be banned, or Raichu specifically should be banned, and could be good content both in the present, where I am, of course, adapting to new changes, but also in the past, where you can kind of see how something as future-proof, as I'm gonna call it, when I do make a video on it, I'll talk about that a little bit more. But in my opinion, Raichu is a little bit future-proof. I think it'd be kind of cool to make a series showing how a future-proof deck adapts to the future. And I want to do all that in a very nice and a good quality manner. But I also don't want to be afraid to try something new. Because the reality is that no one can predict the future, and part of the reason why my old series, is so garbage is because I'm trying to keep this outdated format. And I'm gonna, I said before, I only know the very basics of video editing, but I would like, if I do decide to take the time and really get into video editing, time permitting, of course, that I can have a series where I can kind of up the quality without making the viewing experience terrible, not in the sense of video quality, of course, but in the sense that I have to change up the format, or something like that. I know this is like all very nebulous, but that really is my thinking. And again, I'm trying to explain to you what I want to do in the future without making promises I can't keep. But all you really need to know for now is that I am closing this series. This is going to be the final episode, and in the future, I'm going to be rebooting the series. So this brings me to my final third point I kind of realized I never mentioned, which is what is going to happen between the day this goes up and when I reboot this series. Because I'm not rebooting this series next week. I need time to really think about it, especially given all the things I've been saying earlier. So there's going to be some time between them. And in the meantime, my channel is not going anywhere, and Raichu is not going anywhere. There's a couple of videos I want to make that I think should be made, I should say. And I want to make stuff like, for example, I have planned a video where I kind of go over Silent Lab and Power Plant, and kind of the benefits to both, and why you should choose some over the other, because in all my decks I've been doing a 1-1 split of each, and I've been getting some questions over why don't you use 2 Silent Lab or a 3rd Stadium and stuff like that. Well, I guess I can't really answer that last one super duper well, but I want to do a video for that, because I've done some research, of course, into which abilities are shut down by each, and in what situations, and by situations I mean how would the metagame need to change before one would become better over the other. Stuff like that, maybe stuff where I go over my old videos and kind of correct what's wrong. Maybe I re-release, just straight up release that old Rebel Clash analysis, because the part where I go over Poke Beach is really cool. In my opinion, it should be something that should be shared. Maybe I can do something similar in a bit streamlined manner for Darkness Ablaze. Just like with Rebel Clash, there are a couple cards I know of, such as the Crobat V and the Eternatus V Max. But for the most part, I don't know every single card. Well, there's still quite a while till Darkness Ablaze comes. At least of this recording. Well, it's still May, so to me it feels like we still have quite some time. But stuff like that. Maybe some other things. This channel, specifically in terms of this channel, I feel like it's pretty much in terms of the Raichu series. I'd also like to make like a video on very cheap decks that you can make as cheap as Raichu decks can be. And to be fair, Raichu's on the cheaper side of expanded decks if you're willing to take out the A spec, and of course I don't use Tropical Beach because obviously that would really crank up the price. But maybe like really quick, easy to buy, or at least acquire the cards on PTCGO, and easy to learn to kind of introduce players to Raichu decks. I've also had some people saying, your deck looks cool, but I have no idea where to start. And whether they're trying to be nice and they don't care, or if they actually do want to learn how to play, I feel like there should be something. Right? But also, in terms of this channel, Kurtupo, there's a lot more stuff I'd like to do. PCGO, in case you could not tell by the fact there are month-long gaps, It's not the only thing I do. You know, my background is in VGC, and I did take the 2019 to 2020 season off, and I guess now everyone did. I guess you could just call it the 2020 season. I guess there is no 2020 season now. Now everyone is taking that season off, with the exception of the Players' Cup. And I do look forward to that. But, you know, I could talk... I do want to do VGC content in the future. Probably not this season because, again, I told myself I would make a break. And I've gone this far, right? I don't think it's going to take me much longer or much more effort to not jump into VGC. The 2021 season looks kind of cool. But there's also other games I play. Specifically, Puyo Puyo and Panel Upon. I've basically done zero content on this channel, even though I have some things recorded, and I would have some things planned for the future that I would really like to do. Maybe it could be as simple as uploading Quarantine Rapport, that tournament. Well, actually, this time, Quarantine Report 2 Solitaire is streaming it, so I guess I'll put the link to his YouTube in the description. Why not? Good guy, you should check him out. But future tournament. Oh, for those of you who do not know, I help out TOing Panel Upon / Tetris Attack / Puzzle League tournaments online. Obviously, there are no IRL events for now, but there's a ton of online tournaments, and I've been helping to organize. I would say most of them, but I don't really know. Like, I don't know. For all I know, there's a giant community, specifically the Japanese community, that has more tournaments and is more competitive than us. Actually, I'm certain the Japanese community is more competitive than us. But I do help out in tourneys, and I'd love to do, you know, showcasing good players. Maybe I don't know. I'd like to do content on Panel Upon because that's another game I love a lot, and I really would like to share that with everyone, because some people have never heard of the series until the NSO re-release. And same thing with Puyo. I'm not as good as Puyo, or excuse me, I'm not as good at Puyo as I am. Well, actually, I guess my skill level is comparable, but they're both. I'm not really that great at either of the games. But also the Puyo community, at least in terms of content creation, and also in terms of just sheer size, is a lot bigger. There's a ton of, you know, if you want to see Puyo matches every single day, there are tons of people, right? There's S2, not so much Quapo, there's Reshram18, I know he recently got a capture card. Shout out, I'll put all these people in the description, why not? But I would like to do stuff like that. I actually have 2 other channels in addition to Kurtupo. I have my Stream Archive channel. That one is up. There's not a whole lot on there. I'd like to upload the VODs that I have. I did have a little oopsie on my end, and I have like months of VODs. They're just gone. They're just lost to time. So there's going to be a huge gap. I'll be like playing BSS, and then suddenly we'll jump back a few months, or jump forward a few months, excuse me. And then I'll be playing puzzle games. But that's there, and I guess I'll put a link to that in the description as well. And I also run a music channel, music in quotes. It's a music extension channel, so I basically take soundtracks from games that I could not find an extended soundtrack. Sometimes I just could not find the soundtrack at all. And I extend them to 15 minutes. I kind of stopped because I was extending Puyo Puyo Sun's soundtrack, and I have the PC version. I don't have a Dreamcast and the N64 is not really good quality. So I have the PC version, and actually the PC version has a... I'm not sure if it's a glitch or if it's just the developers decided to slack off a little. The music actually does not loop properly, and I've just been like hooking up my capture card. Well, in this case, since it's on PC, I just record it. And I just leave it running for like 15 minutes, and of course, since it doesn't loop properly, I can't do that. I have to learn to like actually manually extend that, and I have learned to do that since then. I just haven't taken the time to go through the entire Puyo Puyo Sun soundtrack and do it all over again. But the nice thing about teaching myself that is that I've learned to make extensions a lot quicker, because now I don't have to stand here, for 15 minutes each and every single track. And there's a tons of games I'd like to extend music for. Some games don't really have a proper OST out there anyway. It was really cool. I'd like to give love to some of these games that I like, but everyone seems to have forgotten. I'm kind of just rambling now. I wasn't supposed to talk about the future of Kurtupo channel specifically for very long. Before I end this off, I just would like to point out that I do stream a ton over at twitch.tv/Kurtupo. Links in the description. As always, that's another thing. I kind of made the Raichu series thinking that I would have less time to stream. I would just not be able to stream, but I would be able to make YouTube videos, and that has not happened. I actually somehow have more time to stream. Not that much more time, but I stream more than, twice a month now, which is pretty good, IMO. In my opinion, excuse me. And also I just don't really like making, not that I dislike making YouTube videos, but it takes a lot of effort, and it's a lot easier if I want to show something off. It's a lot easier to just stream it, especially now that I have the archive channel where I can just, I cut out the intro and the outro, and I don't really take breaks too often. When I do, I'll cut those out, and I upload those to the archive channel, and that's a lot easier on my end for creating content. At the end of the day, Kurtupo is more of it's not really here to provide the best content in the world or to make money. I don't make more than like 3 cents a month. Basically nothing, right? It's not here to make money. It's mostly here for me and to archive all the crazy things that I do on the internet. And for now, that seems to be Raichu. I become the Raichu person. Hey, I'm perfectly fine with that. But yeah, I've gone on long enough. I was trying to keep this under half an hour. I have failed to do so. But I suppose it's par for the course considering my track record, if not a little bit under. But yeah, as always, if you have any questions, because I've thought about this a lot more, obviously, than I've decided to share here. But if you have more questions, just hit me up, put in the comments, ask me on stream, I don't know, DM me on, Discord's not really a public place. I also have a Twitter now. I made a Twitter. I don't post there very often. I mostly just chat out others, at least of now. Maybe I'll start using Twitter a little bit more. I need to get a little bit better at that. But yeah, hopefully this was suitable enough for, I guess, kind of the end of the series. I did want to make something. I didn't want to just leave it at Sword and Shield review, and then it just goes dark for several months. It's already been a couple months, but I did want to make something just to formally say. Of course, if you've been following me on my streams, I have mentioned multiple times the series has ended for all intents and purposes, but I haven't exactly made that clear on YouTube. And also just nice, going back. I don't know, when I watch very old content, I typically don't look at the time between releases, and it'll be nice to actually have an end instead of someone having to go back in the distant future and say, hey, where'd that episode go? Because they don't realize the next episode was like 4 months later or something like that. But yeah, this is like the 5th time I'm trying to end the video now. I'm just gonna end it here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time with whatever our next adventure is. Until then, take care.